could invoke him with your blessings, because he said that if you do that, if you send your blessings upon the Prophet, Allah will send his blessings upon you 10 times of what you say. And he said also, for those who invoke him a lot with their blessings and praise, they will be the closest with him in the day of judgment. So I usually train myself and remind myself and you that always when you hear the name of the Prophet, say peace be upon him, or say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, that's really a great reward in every word that you say. In that, that's number one. Number two, when the sisters asked me to talk about not the whole marriage in everything. It is just to see, because there's a lot of sisters or brothers, they are trying to get married. So this is just show them the way of how to, the process of choosing your wife or your husband. Okay, so there's a lot of details on that. What is the Islamic perspective on this? So that's what we are going to learn, inshallah. I'm just going to touch in few things, not in a lot of details, in a lot of things, but inshallah ta'ala for us to understand the process towards that. Okay? So during this process, we are going to learn few terms, and I want you to learn those terms as we go. As you remember when we discussed last time about the Quran, so through that I tell you, try to remember this term in Arabic. So this is the way you train yourself to learn those terms as we say it. Okay? Inshallah. Marriage, which is very good topic. I'm not that good about it, but I'll try, inshallah ta'ala, to learn from my experience and the knowledge that I have about this topic. And this marriage by itself, it's a knowledge. Okay? It's something that you have to seek the knowledge of. It is not something that you just jump yourself and get married. You know, when you want to learn something, or you want to go to a college, okay, to become a doctor or an engineer, do you go to a college and learn and do you? We spend our wealth and money, and we spend our time and effort to learn that topic. Anything, you want to drive a car, you would just, you were just bored, and you are just know how to drive a car by watching. You have to learn it, right? You have to learn the process of driving a car. Somebody needs to teach you. Either you go to school, or your father, or your mother, or your friend teach you how to drive a car. You need to learn the laws and all these things, the rules and all that stuff. So marriage is the same thing. You know, you've got to learn about it before you get involved in it, because that would save your life. Look, in one of the Arab countries, in 1950, there were about 9% divorce cases. In 1961, with 11 years, it jumps to 19%. In 2003, it jumped to 30%. And in 2013, it jumped to 49%. Why? Because people are not learning about it. They are not seeking the knowledge, how to be the best husband and how to be the best wife. What is the techniques? What is the thing that saved my marriage? What is the thing that it will continue and it will revive my marriage during these years of marriage? And that is what we're going to, inshallah ta'ala, the process we're going to start from the beginning and then go up in that. Because the most difficult time in marriage is the first year. Really, you pass the first year, there is a good chance, 50-50 or 60%, 70% of your marriage will continue, inshallah. So that is the most tough year, is the first year in marriage, because our brain, the male or the men, is different from the female's brain. You know, we have different boxes inside our brain, the way we function, the way we deal with things. It's really completely different. I watch a video about a comedian He was talking about inshallah, maybe you have a chance, we will watch that. We're talking about how the men's brain function is completely different from the women. So you have to really to understand that, and inshallah ta'ala we are going to learn it from the Islamic perspective. And we'll enjoy this. And I need really interaction in this class. Tell us about stuff that you face in your life. I will tell you about things that I face in my life so we can be able, inshallah ta'ala, to go on. Some of because people are trying to avoid marriage. You know what I mean? Why I have to get involved in this kind of relationship and commitment and, start a family? Why not just be free? Why not just go, every time I go to a different garden and stuff like that, different flowers. And the same thing for men and women and stuff like that. So even though this becomes really dangerous, one of the European countries, because they have a very low percentage of marriage, they would disappear. A time would come over and they would disappear because of that. So this marriage in Islam, it's really, really important, and we are going to learn from the Quran or the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ, because the most important thing in marriage in Islam is to start a family. That is the most important thing, is to start an Islamic, a Muslim family with husband and wife and children. And this is what builds a society. So in Islam, focuses on that, different perspective from any other religion or society and so on. Look, what is Islam? If you go to what we call Sharia, what it consists of? If you read the Quran, the whole Quran, what do you find in the Quran? Mostly, what is the verses talks about? Talks about, the main thing is talks about what? Worship, right? This is about everything. Oneness of Allah, prayers, fasting, Hajj, conduct, right? Behavior, all of those things. This is what we call a worship in Islam. Okay? How to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Islam's focus about, mainly if you read in the Quran. What other things is dealings. In Islam, focus about dealings, trade, business, money. Okay? Most of you read some of the verses about that. There's a lot of verses talks about dealings in Islam, or the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, the other thing is jurisdiction, which is punishment, rules, laws of you do this, if you don't do that, you will be punished. And you will be rewarded. You'll be all of this, also the verses talk about that. And relationship. The relationship between the kids and their families, or the family, or the husband. There's about 146 verses in the Quran about that. And so many hadith talks about the relationship in the family itself. Emphasize the Quran about that to show us the importance of family in Islam. Look, there is a lot of good rewards. And those good rewards, no one gets except if you are married. Okay? If you are married, you will get these rewards. If you're not married, I'm sorry, you're not going to get them. Alright? So who's married here? Raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 80? Like for example, the man, the money that you spend in your, Prophet ﷺ says, the money or the dinar. Dinar is the currency at that time. Let's say $1. You spend in jihad, you have a reward. The money that you spend in freeing a slave, that you have a reward in it. The money that you spend in a miskin or a needy person, you have a reward. And the money that you spend in your family, you have a reward. And they ask him, and he says, the best of that spending is the one you spend in your family. Wow. Better than jihad, better than spending on a miskin or a needy person, better than spending for freeing a slave. At that time, we have no slaves these days, alhamdulillah. At that time, doing that which has a great reward. But the best among all of them, that the money a man who spends in his family, to his wife and his kids, in his home, the reward is more than any other rewards. That's nobody gets. You're not gonna get it until you get married. So only that special case for the person who is married. Also, our Prophet ﷺ says that the food the husband puts in the mouth of his wife has a reward in it. Has a reward in it.
Oh,
and the
extremely rewarded.
Yeah.
Going to Jennifer Sure.
From a quality place like Publix. If it's Walmart, you get half.
Discount's not working.
Yeah, discount's not working. And it depends on what kind of food you're eating. If you get her from Olive Garden, it's different from McDonald's.
Yeah.
So you will get rewarded that. Even though it's something very little, but still our Prophet ﷺ says you will have reward. You know, if you have a children, and God forbid you lose one of your child, look what the Prophet ﷺ says. If you lose one of them, he says, the Prophet ﷺ in the Hadith Qudsi. You remember Hadith Qudsi we talked about? Right? Is the saying, is the meaning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the saying is the saying of the Prophet. But he referred that to Allah, right? We said about that, remember. He says, the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if the one of the child of my servant died, the Hadith says, the Prophet says, he would tell, the Prophet says, see, that's a reward. Give it to your wife, you'll get more reward. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to his angels, have you taken the soul of my servant's child? They have taken his child, like he died. He says, and the angels reply, yes, O Allah. Yes, we have done that. He says, you have taken the fruit of his heart. You know what I mean? The child is so precious to the family, especially to the mothers. Unbelievable. You would not, though those who are not married, you will not feel that relationship between the mother and her children unless you become a married person and you will have children and you will see that passion. Unbelievable. So and then he says that you have done this, and he says, and he tells his angels what my servant done. What he said. He says, oh Allah, he praised you and thanked you. Wow. You know, it's not like somebody who loses a child, he loses his mind. Okay, and start tearing their clothes and screaming and yelling. You know, crying in Islam, that's what Islam wants from you. You have to cry. You have to feel you are in pain and you feel sad. There's no problem. But when I'm doing this, it says, Alhamdulillah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we all shall return. Okay, to Allah we shall return. You're being patient. You weep and cry and feel sad and all of this. But in that process you say, Alhamdulillah. To all, Alhamdulillah. To Allah we all shall return. All of those things, when the servant says that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, build a house for my servant in paradise and call it the house of thank or praise because of that. Because he lost one of his children. And also that helps, it's also the reward. And also the reward when the husbands woke up in the middle of the night or Salat al-Fajr and woke his wife, or the opposite. Usually a husband sleeps, the wife woke up and woke her husband for Salat al-Fajr. If he does not wake up, he said, Prophet ﷺ, he says, threw some of the water in his face. Sprinkle. It's not like you're taking the whole pocket in his face. Okay, please don't tell my wife about what he said, all right? All right. We're talking about marriage. All right?
Yeah.
So, during that lecture, we may ask you to step out. Yeah. All right. So in that process, you will be rewarded. Look, there is a time where marriage, listen this carefully, marriage is a must for you to do. Okay? It's a must for you to do. It's obligatory for a man to get married. And if you don't do it, it will be haram. You will be sinful. Okay? There's 4 cases in that. The first one is fard, means a must for you to do. In some cases, it is sunnah for you to do. I will explain what is different between sunnah and other. In some cases, it is haram for you to get married. We're talking about husband and wife, men and female. It's haram for you to do. And some cases, it's dislike for you to get married. Let's discuss those. Look, in fard, what is fard? That means obligatory. That means you have to. Now, if you do it, you will be what?
Rewarded.
In fard, you'll be rewarded. And if you don't,
You'll be punished.
you'll be punished, you'll be sinful. Okay, it's a sin. Now, in haram, what we do? In haram, which is lawful things, what do you do? If you do it, what do you do?
You receive the sin for it.
You will be sinful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't,
Then you get a reward.
you will be rewarded. Now, sunnah. If you do it, you will be what?
Rewarded.
You'll be rewarded. And if you don't do it,
You will not be rewarded, but not take on any
It
sin.
won't be a sin for it.
you'll be sinful. Exactly. So nothing will happen to you.
Nothing.
Okay? Dislike.
It won't be a sin towards you, but it's not liked by.
It's not like
something you should
so
do.
if you do it, it's okay, nothing.
Yeah.
You're not committing a sin. But if you don't do it, you'll be rewarded. Okay? You'll be rewarded. So this is the different in category in Islam. When you hear fard, when you hear haram, when you hear sunnah, and you hear dislike. Okay? So let's go with fard, which is the first one, a must. A must for you to get married. If you don't do it, you will be what? Sinful. A man who has the ability physically and financially, okay? He says, I'm able physically, I'm ready, and financially. Alhamdulillah, I'm working, I have a good job, I'm making good money. There's no problem for him to open a house. There's nothing. Rent an apartment, prepare my apartment for rent, I can buy furniture, I can pay my electricity bill, my gas bill, all those things, that necessity that you do, you'll be able to do. There's no problem with that. So you have the ability of physical ability and financial ability. And he wants to get married.
Mental maturity.
You have to have mental ability.
Mental
Maturity, said the moms.
Maturity, well, yeah, there's a long list.
I had a
But-
young man ask me, aren't our parents supposed to help us if we say we want to get married? I said, yeah, but they're not supposed to help you be stupid.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to do this. You can't just 16 decide you want to have all the
Can you
marital.
clean your room first? That's all I
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
We'll get to
You
that.
can't clean your room without my help, so no, you're not ready.
Don't tell my
We will
son.
get to that. So, and you want to do that, okay?
Exactly.
And the most important thing, you are afraid that you may fall in haram. When I'm saying in haram, that means what we call zina. Remember the word zina, which is fornication.
Fornication.
I'm going to repeat that a lot. So if you are afraid to do that, now marriage is a must on you. Okay, is a must on you. And if you don't get married, that you will be falling into haram. Okay, Prophet ﷺ reminded the youth, whoever has the ability of that, you need to get married. If not, he says, protect yourself with fasting, because that's a protection for you. Because when you're fasting, you're hungry, your stomach is really making a lot of noises, you're not going to think about nobody else except your stomach. Believe me. So this, in this case, is a must for you. Now, what is a sunnah? Why one becomes a sunnah? A sunnah becomes, if you have the ability to, financially and physically and mentally, let's add that. Okay? And you are not afraid of falling into haram, into zina. You're not. You're protected. You live with your family, religious family, for example. Okay? And you know most of the time that you spend, either you go from your home to work, and from work you go to the masjid. You attend lectures. You're a religious person. You're not afraid. Alhamdulillah, I'm protected. Okay? Those things is not really important to me. Then at that time, manage to come to you is a sunnah. If you do it, you'll be rewarded. If you don't, you will not be suffering. All right?
Does this one exist?
This one exists. Let's see. In this country,
You're a blind
mainly
man,
in this
maybe?
country, it is. I don't think so. Unless in a few cases, yes. Really, when you live in a Muslim country, that probably would be existing. If not in a Muslim country, in this country where everything is as open for you around, you go to work, you go to places, you go to mall, you go everywhere.
Not
It
even
is
in
not.
a Muslim
I
country,
don't- I
because when they
argue.
lower their
Yes,
gaze,
yes.
they lower their gaze to the woman's ankle, and they're looking at their ankle.
I don't even think it exists in
What-
this
that's
one
one-
country.
one time-
They're pretty shoes.
One time I went to Saudi Arabia, and the first time I went. So I was sitting with a group with a sheikh. So that person was telling the sheikh, he says, well, sheikh, he's a Saudi, and I was just listening, coming from America. So I was listening to this sheikh, he says, sheikh, wallahi, when I go to the mall here, it really hurts my heart to see all those fitna. Fitna was, he was referring to women. And you see all, all of them in the souk, and souk, they call it the mall. And it hurts. I stay in my home really hurting from seeing all of this. And I was sitting there, oh my God. This is, what do you mean? Is this really in Saudi Arabia? And I'm coming from America. This person comes to America with this kind of. So I'm just talking to myself. And then the next day I said, the person, take me to the market. I want to buy something for my wife. So I went there and I was looking around. I said, well, my faith really increased me because all of them, they are wearing the burqa
The
and
niqab.
in the niqab, and completely you don't see nothing.
Right.
It's just like a tent moving around. I said, whoa, I saw this, I said, I'm so happy. There's nothing there. I said, come to Galleria Mall, and then we see what's gonna happen to you. You know what I mean? Or go to those malls, it's completely different life. I say, you know what I mean?
Go to the grocery
But
store.
because he was referring to his society, okay, it's not our society. So it's different. Yes,
I still
in
understand
that
that.
home probably is different, but now with the internet, with those open malls, like in Dubai right now, they've become really open. They're really, if you go to Lebanon, believe me, you will see things that you would not see in the States.
That's a brother that is
You would not.
required to get married, by the way. The one who said
Which
he's
means all of
got
them.
big fit. No, when he goes to the
Yeah.
mall, that means he's required to be
Yeah.
married.
It's so that this guy becomes
Sitting there just from.
this guy is haram for him to come to
For the
America.
Right.
So it's different
any
in
Western
society.
country.
Eyelashes were his downfall apparently. Eyelashes and eyebrows.
It's completely different society. So now, what is haram for him to get married? That's strange. Why to a person it's haram for him to get married? Is it?
If he's not financially,
Financially.
maybe he's not financially able to take care of
Financially
himself.
able to take care of the
They have
family.
some physical problems that would.
Guys, you guys answered
Well,
the
I
whole
mean,
thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly what you say is he has a mental problem, a physical problem, or he has financial problem. You know, if I'm not be able to open a house, I'm like a man who approaches, says, I want to get married. I love this girl. He said, okay, are you working? No. Are you be able to provide her with a house or, pay your rent? He says, no, we'll help each other. Okay, are you be able to do that? He says, no, no, no. Your family can support you? Says, no. They say, how in the world are you gonna get married then? You cannot. So you have to really financially and physically. Maybe somebody is sick. Okay? You have some. Maybe he has a disease. Okay? He cannot be able to fulfill his responsibility toward the house. Most of the time he is sick. He cannot go to work. Or maybe he can transfer that disease to her. So all of those things are really taken.
The problem with the mental is crazy people don't know they're crazy.
That is,
And the families are
how
trying
are
to
you
get them out
gonna
of the house,
determine?
yeah.
How are you gonna determine?
But I mean, that's making light of something, but it's really important to know that it's not just crazy or not, it's also, if you don't worry about what's important, if you're not concerned about making sure that the rent's paid or the bills are paid or whatever, even though you may have the money to do so, if you're not worried about the important things that it takes to be married, then you're still not ready to be married.
If you're not a responsible person. If you're not mature enough to take on those responsibilities.
Responsibility. And we're gonna come
Or
to
that you don't even think about those ahead of time, even though you have the money and you're physically and mentally capable of doing those things. The other part of that is the desire to provide for your wife. And why is that so important? Why is it so important to have that desire to provide for your wife? Everybody should know this one. All the women cannot answer. The men need to answer this one. Why is that important? It's not just reward, it's my right. I have the right to make
You have
sure
to
that my
fulfill your
husband is not
responsibility.
requiring me to go to work in order to
Exactly.
fulfill the needs. But, however, if I choose to do that to help my husband out and make it a lot less difficult, and if I would like to live a little bit better life, I can choose to go to work. But he can never ask me for my money. My money is my money and his money is my
Or
money.
even how much you have. He can't even ask you what money you have.
And
That's a
that's-
selling point, by the way, if you want to talk to someone about Islam. That old adage, you know that old adage, what's mine is mine and what's yours is ours? That's true in Islam.
It is, when it comes
It
to
is.
marriage.
But if the wife chooses to do so, and that's something you guys, if she's agreed to do that out of her own volition, then that's acceptable. But it is not her job to provide for the home. It is your job to provide for the home, and that's why when you're ready to get married, you must be ready to be married. And watch who you marry.
There could be a female who says to a guy, okay, you meet all the other
Honestly.
requirements, but perhaps you can't earn a living because of maybe a physical issue or something. I'm willing to be the breadwinner. They can make those agreements, that's allowed.
And that's of her own volition,
Yeah.
though. If he says, well, would you help me? That's not allowed. That's not allowed. If he says, in every other way I'm capable of doing so, the only thing I'm not capable of doing is making sure that all of everything is paid.
Right.
And she says, well, I can handle that part. That's different.
So he
But-
can't ask her.
Cannot ask
So
her
he
to
can't ask her, hey, you need to go to work to help me.
No.
No,
Ever.
I'll be in your side.
Even after
marriage. You know what they're talking about now. I'll be happy, okay? Yeah, but this is the only thing they remember. Oh, you have to.
No, that's good. That's not even true.
So, but
It's
it's
just,
true in
it's
Islam.
just important to remind you guys a
It
bit
is
more
not
often.
half and half. It's not your sharing. Okay, your responsibility is to provide all of this. You have to provide shelter,
It's my
and
right.
clothing and food. That we will come to that
Those
later
are
on.
mandatory requirements on
Yes.
the
It
men
is
in
not
order
a
to be
sharing
able to be married.
responsibility in that. Okay, it is not.
Yeah.
What can we do? All right.
You wanna host the whole thing.
Men should get credit for that, and women, we don't give men the credit that they deserve. It. We're always like mama, mama, mama. It's never about, daddy just gets the big piece of chicken, as Chris Rock would say, or something. That's all daddy ever gets, But the thing is, men have that responsibility and that stress on them, and if you're a single mom, you know that stress. And we don't give, as women and wives, a lot of times we don't give them enough credit for that stress they deal with on a daily basis, and they never get a break from it, no matter what. So we need to remember that and give our guys their credit in that regard.
The only time that relieves the men from that not responsibility, he's still responsible if he married a princess, for example. or a very rich woman.
That's why I said be careful who you
Extremely.
choose.
Yes. That she tells him, honey, you don't have to work, you know, I pay for everything.
Yeah.
God's in paradise. All right. So if he is mentally sick, he can, like, for example, you may, yes.
I was gonna say, I mean, I can give you guys a good example of somebody that's from is my cousin. Poor guy, he was born with a disease where he can't even walk, he can't take care of himself mentally, physically. He's constantly in the hospital, but he's made the effort to work and to pray and to do all of these things, and he'd love to be loved. But it's one of those situations where it's from, he's only gonna live to 35, he's, 30 right now. It's from if he did marry somebody for a couple of years and tried to have kids who would actually carry on that disease.
Exactly. That is one of the cases.
There are cases like that. It sounds really strange, but
And this
there
is
are
a
people.
test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him in his life. Okay? Look, let me mention about something like that. Don't say, well, he is not unfortunate. You know what I mean? But look into our eyes in this life. Yes, we may look at it this way. All right? But in the day of judgment, for those who were patient and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of what happened to them in this life, and they die in the day of judgment, they will be, because of the reward that Allah will give them, they will wish to go back into this life and test it more because of the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them. So, and especially when it comes to responsibility of the men, that they have to provide financial support. You will get rewarded, as we say. Everything you do to your wife and to your home, to your children, in every penny you spend, you will be rewarded for. Okay? So you are getting all the rewards because of you paying the rent, you paying electricity, gas, food, all of those things, you will be rewarded for. Okay?
If you're doing it with the right intention.
Exactly, if you do it for the right intention.
If
Also,
you're doing it because she's nagged you long enough and you just want to give in and you're done listening to that, that's not the right intention. The right intention is, I'm doing this to obey Allah. I'm doing this fi sabilillah. I'm doing this because it's for the sake of Allah, because He commanded this for me. I'm doing this. And that goes the same for the women. Exactly the same. Everything we do on our side, which is giving the credit, like Monica was saying, I don't agree with totally. But when our husband walks in the door and we say, may Allah reward you for your efforts today, this is a huge booster for our brothers. For them to realize that we acknowledge the effort they've made all day in order to provide for his children and for his wife. This is something that is on our side to comfort our husbands when they walk in the home is farz. It's required. We're not supposed to just, hey, I'm going, we welcome them home. We should make our home a place where they feel, halas, I get to relax now. I get to enjoy my family. I get to really be loved and cherished,
And we will come to that. So this is the case is haram, okay? Or a person who is has wealth, but he is very extremely greedy, okay? Extremely greedy, that he would not provide a good home, and he is able to do that.
Cheap.
Or cheap. No, there's a difference between cheap and greedy.
That's right.
Okay? Yes. So,
He's not either.
like if he be able to buy her a good car, for example, 2005. What is that?
Record this.
Yes, record this.
Record this.
A car 2001, and he buys a 1980, and he
We're
can
in
afford to buy a
2014.
2001.
We're in
That's different.
2014.
We are not yet.
Getting ideas.
I put myself in trouble. Why do you ask me such
They put you in trouble because they
Why do you
asked
ask
me
me
this
to do
lesson.
this marriage stuff?
And you made sure I was here, by the way.
So what I mean, see what I mean? If he is really extreme and he would not, and he make her really live, and every time she asks him, why didn't you buy me clothes? Why didn't you this? He says, you want to be. Prophet ﷺ did not have a lot of things. And live humbly, have not to do this. Why you have to do this? In the day of judgment, Allah will give out paradise. No, you cannot do that. Okay? So at that time, it's really marriage is not good for you. And this is, I say, if you have a firm belief that you are one of those, you cannot do that. You cannot get married.
If you
Now,
unroll
if
the
you
toilet
are-
paper rolls, the 2-ply, and make 2 rolls out of 1 roll,
Yeah.
don't get
Don't
married.
That's too much.
If you are,
I've seen
if
it.
you know yourself, if you brothers or sister, If you know yourself that you are a person who get upset and mad and become physical abuser, that's very important because it happens in the States a lot. Physical.
States.
You use your hand to hurt your wife
Or your husband,
or your husband.
or your children.
And you may sometimes you lose your mind because you got so upset and mad and angry that you may use stuff. I don't want to say what is it, but stuff to hurt your wife and husband. At that time, it's haram for you to get married. Okay, haram for you to get married. Now, if you are afraid, that's different in Islam. So the wording is so important. If you are afraid that you may hurt your husband or your wife, afraid, then it becomes makruh for you. Makruh is dislike. Okay? For you to get married, you need to go and ask for help. Go train yourself. Go to a therapist. Okay? To change that in your life before you getting married. That's why we really advise the couples to assist help before marriage. Learn about techniques and things. And usually ask a lot of questions during that process to avoid these things that happen during your marriage.
This
Now,
includes mental. This includes mental abuse.
oh, definitely, mental
Yeah,
abuse.
mental abuse
Yes.
is just as bad in Islam
Oh,
as
definitely.
physical.
As physical.
Verbal too.
That's what I mean
Yeah.
by mental.
Also, it's a dislike for you if you know somebody who like this girl and you go behind him and go ask for her. Okay? From the family. And you know that he is asking.
Or
This
he's
is dislike.
interested in asking.
Interested
or
in
whatever.
asking. Or they are in the process. Okay? In Islam, it's dislike. This Sahabi or is a Tabi'i, his name is Al-Mughira. He used to be a very genius man. He says, nobody defeated me except this person who went to him for advice to marry this girl. So that person said, at least let me look at her and find some information about her family. So he went there and he saw her beautiful, intelligent girl and everything. So he went to him and told him, do not get married of her. Because I saw a man kissing her.
You
And
lying.
that, the Arab, when he knows that, no way he will get married to that. Then after a while, he was invited, Al-Mughira was invited to a wedding. And the wedding was this man that he gave him the advice and the same girl that he was asking for. And he says, I ask you, and then you married. He says, yeah, I saw her father kissing her. So he deceived him. Okay? So he would
That's when
refuse
it's
the
allowed
marriage,
to
so he would
fight.
marry her. Okay? So
That's almost Shakespearean.
it is.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for
Also-
the girl. She did not marry the better man.
And with this, deceiving the husband or wife before marriage is not acceptable in Islam. It's disliked. Like for example, you go and ask, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm a manager or CEO in a big company. And actually he is the custodian. Or you ask what kind
I
of...
work for one of the major law firms, and then you realize that he cleans the bathrooms at the major law firm.
works for
For example, yes.
Somehow you're not lying, but you're not telling the truth.
Deceiving.
Yeah.
Huh.
This is not right. One time I was sitting with, look, this happened and my wife knows. My daughter, she was working at a restaurant, Chinese restaurant, in Patton Creek, Zing's. Patton Creek. She is what she was working
She
on.
was a hostess.
Hostess. And everybody likes her. She organized. They come to her. I was inviting this person to a restaurant which was below her from that restaurant, so you could see the windows. Panera Bread. You could see the windows of that restaurant, the back windows of that restaurant, Zing's, where my daughter works. So I was telling you, my daughter works as she's a hostess. She organized. Everybody respects her and all of this. And we were looking at the restaurant, the windows, and I found my daughter cleaning the windows from there, from the back of the windows. So it's just, I was telling him something and she was doing something different. But in marriage, it's the same thing. You cannot tell her things that it is not true.
But even the
You're
owner
deceiving
of the
her.
windows.
Why?
anyway.
Because you want so great in front of her, or she's great in front of you because you want her, or she wants him. So you start making up things about your life or her life, deceiving actually, not true. So because I want her, okay? So because I know she likes these things, or if she knows about these things, she will be very impressed. She will be very impressed with me. I have a good position in the company and you don't, okay? You go and do gym and exercise. No, there's it's not acceptable. I'm not going to come take my place.
Take mine, I'll move.
And if you are saying I'm seeking this kind of degree and you are not, okay? And you say, wow, it's all right. So you're gonna become this and this and that. See what I mean? So all of those are, and you probably or the man will say certain statements to make her believe that he is rich. You know what I mean? Or he comes to her home when he asks about her hand in a Mercedes. And that's, I borrowed the Mercedes from his friend. He doesn't own it. He owns 1981 Cutlass. Ford Escort. Okay? It doesn't work. It's just sitting there as a he takes the bus all the time. But because he want to go there, he take a Lexus or a Mercedes or stuff like that. So, wow. All right? So that's considered deceiving, and this is a dislike in Islam. Like there was a joke about this man who, you know, in the Arab culture, when somebody approached the girl and the father accepted, they say, let's read Al-Fatiha. Read Al-Fatiha means let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening. You know, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. This is indication that we are in agreement, okay? We are agreeing to this proposal.
That's
Okay?
a cultural thing.
That's
not
cultural,
required.
that's not in Islamic
Yeah.
things, okay? It is not an Islamic.
That's an Arabic thing.
This is
that
an
will
Arab
happen if
culture.
you marry an Arab.
Say, read Al-Fatiha means the father is kind of agreeing. This is
Verbally.
initial, verbal kind of agreement.
Nothing's to sign.
Yeah, so he approaches this girl and man, he said, the girl told his father, this man's coming to approach and ask for my hand. They said they ate and they start giving him, you know, dessert and stuff like that. He says, if you don't mind, I like to smoke. He says, oh, wow, you smoke? He says, yes, I love to smoke when I drink beer. Oh, mashallah, you drink beer? He says, yeah, I love this when I'm gambling. He says, you gamble also? He says, yeah, when I left the prison, I started doing that. He says, oh, you're in prison. What did you do? He said, yeah, I went to prison because I killed somebody. Oh my God. He said, what? He said, I used to love this girl. I went to her father and he refused. He says, let's read Al-Fatiha. He said, hey, he will be the next. He refused.
I always love his jokes. Most of the time they translate how it was.
So we have to be very careful. Now, why we get married? Really, why we get married?
That's a total joke.
Okay? That's okay. Why we get married?
Call the police.
First, because it's a religious obligation, right?
Require a mom.
A requirement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked us to do so. Ankihu, that means zawwiju. That means it's an order. Okay, it's an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do so. And the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about marriage. So it really encourages us, in order us, as we say, it becomes, it is a must for you to do. But both four cases, it's a must for you to do so. That's why we want to get married. Maybe sometimes it's what? Is the society itself. It's a social pressure on you. You know, in the Arab culture, I was referring to that. If you are getting old, or she is getting old in age, it's to them, it's not acceptable. Okay? It's not acceptable. They start thinking there's something wrong about him or her. In the West culture, it's different. They delay because they want to fix, establish themselves in work, and, all of that stuff.
They think the same thing here too. Once you reach a certain age, where you
Become
get
an
into
old
like
maid or an
the
old
mid-30s on
much
to the
higher.
40s, they're like, oh, what's wrong?
There's
with
something.
how come he's
40-year-old
not-
married man who's
Yeah,
never been married.
But to us,
25 girls.
40 you passed, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
40.
There, if she reached like 25, 24,
Oh wow.
23 years old, they start
Ridiculous.
talking.
okay?
They start
Maybe
considering like, what's
she
up?
is difficult, nobody wants her, she refuses, she this, there's something wrong about her, that's why she's not married at this age, all of those things. So sometimes that pressure makes you wants to go get married early.
I was 24 when it started
Yes.
happening to me.
Also the pressure of the family, the father and the mother. Okay, almost that is a pressure. You know, why didn't you get married? Well, get married soon. We want to see your children early, and this is also the pressure of the family. Also the sexual pressure, that's normal because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us this way. You want to avoid haram, and that is the best way of halal, and you will be rewarded for it. This is why not get married. So that's also a pressure. Also the offspring, that I want children to carry my name, okay, my family name. So I enjoy children, I love children, I want children. And the only way to do it is through marriage in Islam. In Islam, okay? So that is also one of the reasons. In Islam, it is haram for the government to sanction the birth, like they have done in China. In China, you were allowed to have one child, that's it. In Islam, the government is forbidden
You're allowed to keep
to
one
do that.
child.
You are allowed to organize, which is no problem with that, but you cannot prevent it. Why? Because a lot of the couples, they want a boy. They agree, they have a girl. My God, I have a girl, kill her. Let's wait for that boy. See what I mean? So, or they need a girl and there comes a
Like in
boy.
China, they give the girls up for adoption and they keep trying for a boy,
Yeah.
which is,
And
Well,
it's
that's
worse.
They
They
also
lifted
abort
that
them.
sanction.
I'm saying.
China, like, abort.
Abort, yeah.
Yes.
You know, if they found out that she has a girl, they
It's
go
no
to a
longer one
clinic.
of the sanctions.
But now they change it right now. They change the law. But this is haram in Islam, yes.
No, I was saying in India, they no longer let you know the sex of the baby because if
They
people
did.
will try to abort it, they found out it's a girl. So
Absolutely.
you can't find out the sex of your baby.
Absolutely. That's,
And when we say these things, understand that that doesn't
They're
necessarily
examples.
mean that that's whitewashes that particular group. That's just like somebody saying, all Americans are promiscuous or something like, that's not fair to, these are things that are happening.
an
It doesn't
example.
necessarily mean that's the way, it's a stereotype. Thank you, that's the word. Yeah, because we get stereotyped too, by the way.
also, the reason we go is because we like to be loved.
Justifiably.
Okay? We like somebody to tell me, I love you, or those kind of feelings is acceptable in Islam. There is nothing. There's a Sahabi, his name is Amr ibn al-As. One of the greatest Sahabis, genius, Amr ibn al-As. One time the Prophet ﷺ made him the leader of an army. And it was Abu Bakr. You know Abu Bakr, the first Khalifa, we discussed that. Abu Bakr and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, Uthman in the army. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ, he wants to see the love of the Prophet to him. Well, that's why he put me the leader, because he loves me. See, these are the needs. You want to hear somebody tell you, we love you. So he asked the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "O Prophet of Allah, who is the most beloved person to you?" What was his answer? Aisha. From the women. He said from the women. He said Aisha. Wow. That means the Prophet ﷺ publicly, he is telling everyone that I love Aisha. There is nothing wrong. Some brothers, believe me, and that's culture also. They don't want to say, I love you. Oh, this haram.
It takes away from
And he says Aisha, exactly. And he says Aisha, he named her. Over there, believe me, some of them, in some culture, I don't say, no one knows the name of his wife. He doesn't know, secret. They call her kada. They knew later because she has a boy, his name is Ibrahim. The mother of Ibrahim. Okay? The mother of Ibrahim and so on. So Prophet ﷺ, he says, Aisha. This is the most beloved of the women to me. Definitely Khadija. Definitely other wives. But in that particular hadith, he mentioned Aisha. But when he mentioned Khadija, he has a different love to Khadija. And then from the men, what he says? He said, Abuha, her father, Abu Bakr. He says, "Oh Prophet of Allah, Amr ibn As, he's waiting for the Prophet telling you." He says, and then he says, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Khalif. He says, then he says, Uthman. And Amr ibn As, he says, I stopped asking him because I was afraid that I'll be in the last of his list. And he says, I kept it this way. I stopped.
Something that used to happen, and I don't see it happen as much here, but when the community was a lot smaller, and it was kind of funny. It was my husband would hear guys like somebody might say to an Arabic guy who's married, whether the woman was Muslim, like, so how's your wife? And they go, why do you want to know about my wife? You know, like kind of like that. And sometimes it would happen to some poor American non-Muslim guy who would say, so how's your wife? Or just trying to be pleasant. Why do you want to know about my wife? And you used to be like, look, calm down. He's not trying to move in on your wife.
One of the Indian brothers called called to speak with the female of the home, and the man answered the phone, and he said, may I speak with her name?
Yeah.
And he said, her name is or Abu, whatever, of her oldest son. And he's like, okay, well, am I still allowed to talk to her or not? You know? And he's like, why do you need to talk to her? It was so ridiculous, the emphasis that was put on that. And that in itself, I believe, is like a lack of trust in not only your wife, but also, which has no grounds, by the way, but also in the lack of trust in the brother who may be speaking to her, because we are allowed to deal business with one another, and as you can see, I'm in the room full of brothers, and I teach brothers, and I work with brothers in a lot of instances, and that is allowed. It's when you become too friendly that it's not allowed.
Yeah, and look, Ahmed and I have served on the school board and stuff like that together, but then again, Ahmed and my husband are both Arabic, so when Ahmed would have to speak to me, he would call my husband, speak to him first just as a politeness, and then my husband would hand the phone to me, but you know, they understood each other.
Yeah.
And that was okay, and that's allowed, that's fine, they just knew.
But that's culture.
That's culture.
That is culture.
And there was no.
But it's also not only culture.
Yeah.
It's cultures within culture.
Yes.
Like, you know, that not every Arab is
Right.
that.
Right.
I would text Sister Mary and I would ask her, I said, would it be okay with your husband if I call you? And she told me, yes, Tony, it's okay.
So your husband and Ahmed know each
But
other.
they know each other, and that was just a respect they showed each other. That was fine. You are, it is a culture within a culture. But then again, but my husband didn't grill me about what Ahmed asked me, and he wouldn't have cared the other way around. But that was just a respect they showed each other.
But some others, they have to know the details of everything.
Yeah.
They have.
But
That
that's
is
ridiculous.
really extreme.
It's ridiculous.
Well, my husband and I made an agreement from the onset, and if you're a young couple or you haven't married yet, these are discussions you do need to have, and one of them, you know, someone made an insinuation about me when I was first married to my husband, insinuating to him that apparently I was stepping out or something, and he laughed in their face. And he came home and he said, we need to have a discussion. He said, somebody said this, I laughed at him, it's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard of course. He said, so we need to make an understanding if anybody tries to go between us, that we just say, no, I don't wanna listen to stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So you need to have these discussions and trust each other.
Absolutely.
But that's very rare instances that something like that might happen, but culturally,
Yeah.
you do have to know.
Oh,
the
well,
culture
these were
you're
people who
marrying
were
in.
not,
And
you
then
know,
it's good to ask about it.
practicing, you
It
know.
really is good to ask.
They were in a bad place.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for you to marry is a special interest. Okay, you may find her beautiful. She may find him a handsome man with muscles and all that stuff. Or maybe he's a doctor. She's a doctor. He's an engineer. He's a CEO of a big company. Wow, he's driving Lexus. All of those special interests in that. Okay, she's wealthy. She has money. Her father is rich. My God, if I marry her, I'll become rich.
If someone's in fashion and the other one doesn't give a flip about fashion, you know, those are, you gotta know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. The likes and common ground are one of the most important parts of a marriage, because you have to have something to communicate about.
Exactly.
It's not just the physical aspects of the marriage that you're dealing with. You're dealing with, and this is something that my husband and I, when I got married, I was younger and he was still a student. But when I got married, I had in my mind, I'm not marrying my husband, I'm marrying his family as well. Because when I got married, yes, I married the man, but he comes from that family. And that family can make or break a marriage a lot of times. And my mother-in-law, Allah yarhamha, one of the wisest people I've ever met in my life, and very, very dear friend of mine. And when she passed, it was very painful. Um, but she's, you know, the way they raised that the children, their children, was just beautiful because all of them have this respect for one another. They don't, you know, they're people who can be in business together. Those were the things that I worried about when I was getting married. And it's something that you have to know, okay, if the family's constantly bickering and fighting and nobody wants good for each other, do you want to put yourself in that position where you'll be in that fight at that point? Or are they people who are caring to one another and love one another and will respect you as a different, because sometimes, a lot of times Americans are gonna marry a person from overseas, or you may marry somebody from here who are just as different as if you married someone from overseas. You have to kind of know a little bit about the background and what's common.
Believe me, this is what help you a lot in marriage. If you find somebody who says, well, I'm not worried about your family, I really don't care, this is you and your family.
Big neon sign.
Big sign. This
That
guy
means
is
I'm
not good for
isolating
me.
you from your family. You will not be spending time with your family
Exactly.
because if I don't care about them, don't worry, I'm not going to encourage you to go and visit them either. That's a huge problem.
So you, all those things, believe me, it helps you to choose. And we're going to talk about that next, inshallah ta'ala, next time. Yes.
Oh, it's
Also, one of the special interests, and this is also cultural, is that you marrying somebody, especially men, to a second wife so you can revenge the first one. You take revenge. You say, I'm doing this because I want to show her. You know what I mean? This and that and
what do you
stuff
mean,
like that.
second? What do you
You mean after a divorce or
Either after divorce or maybe during marriage.
as a co-wife?
Yes, or even though, because you are allowed to. And this is not acceptable in Islam whatsoever.
There's a big difference of opinion on that even still.
I know, but
if you're allowed
still,
to even.
still if you are, because that's a big subject. But the illness in the heart of that person to go and do this because he wants to take revenge. Okay, you are treating me this way, I will show you. Okay, intentions is very important.
This, and this, I'm ignorant, so I'm asking with a sincere heart. Doesn't the first wife have to agree to the second wife?
No, she does not have to agree unless she put it in the contract.
That's what I mean, like
If
she
she
does it
already set the
initially.
ground rules, then yes, but if not, no. But there's a very big
She's
difference
not.
of opinion
She's
on
not.
whether it's allowed
But
at all.
but
in
all of
England.
them, all scholars agree that he has.
She has to be informed.
She has to be informed, but it's not like she accept or not, unless it is be written on the
But
contract.
he's
But
crazy if he marries
every
a second
woman,
wife and she doesn't
every,
accept.
but,
I am not
every
open that
woman-
subject of about second wife.
but every woman has the right to divorce. And if you know you cannot handle being a co-wife, you have that right to divorce. And that's why there's a big difference of opinion
Yeah, I'm
now
not gonna
whether
get into, this is a long
co-wives are
subject.
even accepted.
Yeah,
But
it's a
that's
long.
also-
That's a long subject about second wife.
But that's also
Yes.
intention, like, I'm not divorcing him because he's taken a second wife, because that's his right, but my intention is I can't handle the situation. It's a very big distinction to understand.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm also asking as an ignorant as well, but is it allowed to put the stipulation in the marriage contract that he should not take another wife, or I should be in agreement?
This is
Or that you
right.
have the right to
Yes.
divorce.
You have, yes,
Oh,
exactly.
you already have that right. It's not even
You don't have
necessary
to
to
put it
say
in.
that.
That is your right, sister. That's
But
it.
you might want to have that
But you
discussion.
can say, I cannot be married to a
Discussion
man
about
who will
that
take a
before,
second wife.
even there's even people who read
Yeah,
contracts.
yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's a hotbed, that's a hotbed.
Okay, thank you.
Can of worms closed.
All the men were like, woo, and all the women were like, hey.
If there's a disagreement, we can call the police. Yes, the brother has.
Say it's the majority of the scholars allow putting such stipulation. There may have been some scholars that did not allow such.
Well, it's just, I've noticed whenever this subject has come up, even people can get very, It's quite sensitive.
Yeah,
It is.
I guess,
It's a trigger, it's a trigger conversation.
It is.
Literally.
Due to the culture of
It's
America
a
also.
trigger
is
conversation.
May all hands up because
Yeah,
of
but
this.
the point of the scholars that did not allow it is saying, well, you're adding more limitations to the contract
If
of
you can't
marriage
take
that,
care of
that
the
you don't
first
have
wife,
to
why
use.
would you take the second wife?
But the ones that allow the conditions, they say, well, it's okay to put that condition because if the condition becomes not met, then what that means is that she has the right to leave that marriage. And
Yes, yes.
And
Yes,
without
she has
for
this.
dowry.
yeah, without this.
Yes.
You know,
That's what I like that.
this particular topic is just gonna always be here, but I always like to ask the question, from your opinion, from your side, what reason would you want to take on another wife?
The second one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
this is.
Okay,
For the moment you're stating on the
Okay, that's another
You
can.
can get in trouble. I saw Sister Mary like,
I have a reason in my family, and I think it's a legitimate reason. So this, I mean, everybody is dead, so basically, and their children die. So
He's using an example that no one
You're
can
in
be
trouble.
the woman is the cousin of my grandfather, and she married this man, and but they never had children. And then they discovered that she was infertile. She cannot bear children. So she chose his second wife, and he married the second wife, and they stayed together. And my relative raised the kids so that they were poor. So the other woman was cleaning houses and stuff like that. And she became the one who raised the kids
That's good.
until they grew up.
Okay.
And otherwise she would have to be divorced and live single all of her life. So in a sense, that's a setting that works out for both of the women. So.
Believe me, it's in extreme cases. What you see in this culture,
Less than
some of
2%.
the, yeah,
Less than 2%
it
of Muslims
is,
worldwide.
to some of the scholars that I learned, their marriage is not acceptable in Islam, the way they do it. Like he wishes to go and marry another wife, he will go and do it. Okay, there's no basis or reasons for him to do so.
But even among the American
Because if you read the verse, you have to understand
I've
the verse
seen them
in the
do it, and they
Quran.
can't even take care of the first wife, and they'll go
Oh, yeah,
get a
this
wife
is
and have kids, and
In the United States, one will have to take in consideration
It's against
because
the
the
law.
law is against it. Then your second wife does not have any legal standing.
Exactly.
But
And you
it's
cannot,
not just
look,
that.
I put it this way, you cannot start a family to destroy another family. That's basically like that. If you understand it this way, that means if you do that, you are falling into haram. If you want to go and marry another girl because you like her, and you start a life with her, a marriage, and your
Knowing
first
that it's gonna
wife
destroy
is
the-
miserable and is gonna end up in divorce and destroying and
It's
children,
haram.
all of this. At that time, my sheikh told me, you are falling into haram. You are sinful. Make it this way. Make it difficult on
Yeah.
me, but that's the way it is.
So
Sister,
just know
yes.
that.
Yes, sister, go ahead.
I did research on polygamy, and a lot of times the guy would marry, like if his brother died, he would marry his brother's wife, so the nieces and nephews can inherit the family's land. Because if the wife marries a guy outside the family, that guy gets all their father's property, and he may not give it to those kids. He may give it to the kids his wife
Which
married.
culture are you talking about,
You
those
know.
families?
This is culture.
A lot of Jewish
Unfortunately,
cultures,
ignorant.
and
not set up
Saudi Arabia.
But that's
Islamic
haram on the person who
inheritance
doesn't
are
follow
different
through
than
on
that.
what's correct.
The way I inherited it is in Islamic. I guess that's another big topic there. Yeah.
Sometimes, hey.
But see, that's a totally different religion. But that's a different religion too. In Islam, regardless of who the woman marries, that property belongs to the children and part of it belongs to the wife.
Correct.
Each person in that family is entitled to a portion of the inheritance, regardless of whether they marry outside of that, or marry another brother from another family or whatever.
It has to be calculated, it has to be distributed before.
Prior.
Even if she marries
Anything
outside of
takes
the family after the death of her husband, that husband has no right to that
To
land.
her inheritance, that's
Correct.
correct.
That's
What
right.
she comes into the marriage with remains hers.
Right.
It cannot be taken from her,
And
and
his
that's
kids,
her right
his kids and
to,
his brothers also.
yes.
Yes.
And that, you have to cover in front of your brother-in-law, why? Because they are marriageable to you, so if you agree to that, you're not forced into or pressured into a marriage, there's nothing wrong with that either. We've seen it.
But a brother-in-law cannot marry two sisters at the same time.
Right.
Like a man cannot marry two sisters at the same, like that
Right.
sister-wife stuff. We don't
They're
do
not
that.
sisters though.
I know, I'm kidding. But we
Actually,
don't
kinda
do
like
that.
this family.
But no, Islamically, what she comes into any marriage with remains hers. However,
Oh, and
what
by
he
the
comes
way-
into the marriage with, a portion of that belongs to her.
Just as
And
a point,
anything she's acquired during the marriage that, from her job or whatever, is hers
It's
also.
hers.
Everything's
My money's my
Everything, I
money.
know.
Let's all say this, ladies.
for Sunday.
My money's my money, and his money's my money.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't say no.
One point too is that in the example of like
He can't
someone
say
who,
no.
who took a second wife, the first wife said, I can't have children, but I want you to have children, so let's, they're in agreement. I've seen this and it worked out very
Yes.
well. I've seen it work out very well, but the first wife was in on it, so that's why it worked so well.
And it has to be done in a specific way.
Right.
Anyway, let's move on to
No,
the
but
next.
no, my point
And you
was
also
that
have to
if
announce
the
your marriage to the
husband,
community as well. You can't
It
just
must-
get married
okay.
and not
That's
announce
part
your
of-
marriage
No,
to the
then we'll come to
community.
that, we'll come to
the
that.
point being sisters, is you also have that right. You also have that right if it turns out your husband, we never talk about that, but if the man is not able to have children, you have the right to say, and if I've
Vice
heard of it
versa.
happening, I want children, you cannot provide me with children, therefore, and asking
want a
for divorce. But, so it works both ways, but we never talk about that.
And in
Although,
that instance, other rules apply.
We will come to
plenty of
all.
people stay together and don't have children.
We'll come to all of those, but finally, men are in trouble. Okay, either way, we are in trouble.
But
Okay?
I mean,
Or you're
I'm sorry.
extremely blessed.
We are in trouble. We'll
Depends
talk
on
each
who's
other.
saying what.
When it comes to the other subject, we suppose, as a men, talk about that
I've
subject.
been to plenty of,
Alone.
I've been plenty of
camera
couples
in the
stay
room.
together, they don't have children, they just
Yeah.
stay a couple, that's allowed also.
Oh, definitely.
They
That's
choose to
fair.
stay,
They want to
different,
do
there's such a spectrum within
We
Islam
gotta
that's
have a
allowed
men,
you
we
to
gotta have a men's
understand.
meeting.
At the beginning of it.
It got like 10 or 15 degrees hotter in here since.
Brother, I mean, you're gonna have a meeting of men's.
Sweltering in here.
Next class, he said, I'm not gonna take these classes. Don't get in trouble.
Exactly to what Sister Monica was mentioning. And I have a cousin who had that situation where he was married to a woman and he was the one who was infertile. And he went to his wife and he told her, I'm infertile, I cannot have kids. And you're free to go if you want to go. And she didn't leave him. Of course, subhanAllah, he ended up dying a few years later because he had cancer.
That is love.
The chances are we're
This
not
is
gonna leave you
commitment.
guys, you go bald,
Honestly,
you cannot
that is
have children and stuff,
commitment.
we're
This
not
is
going
love.
anywhere, we got you, you're not getting out.
This is commitment and this is love.
We're not letting you go, we are forced.
And that's what I was hoping you get to. Those kind of right there, because you hear all the time, okay, this is what I have, this is mine, material thing. But when you get past those material things, exactly what you said, like that couple there who married and she stayed with her, and which one is more
And that's what you want.
exactly?
That's what you
Well,
want.
that's the marriage that has already fulfilled all of the requirements on one another. That's the marriage when you are going through a hard time. There's no looking in a different grass is greener anywhere else. There's a commitment. Once that commitment is made, it must be nurtured. You can't expect your wife to be that committed to you if you don't show her any of the gentleness and common courtesy and the compassion and passion, by the way. There's all those areas that must be met to be able to realize that this is the person that is going to spend the rest of their life or my life with me.
No matter what happens.
It's important because without that, then the grass is greener on the other side. Almost always. And that goes for the man and the woman.
Absolutely. The last things I would say, because of the time.
But
Yes.
it is not wrong for her to have left her husband.
No.
Because I think women love to have children.
Yes.
And I think it's not, like, we don't want to say that it's better, it's for a woman to decide what is best for her.
Right.
Is it the man or is it the kids? You know, it's we don't want to put a burden on
Right.
anyone.
No, the rights are clear in Islam. That's the beauty of Islam. That's what I love, love, love about Islam is everybody says, well, I wish this baby came with a book. It did. If we realize that we were all born on the fitra of Islam, and this is important to keep in our mind when we're making choices and when we're deciding on who we're going to pick or who's picking us. Because you don't jump at the first possibility from any good-looking person just because they offered. You have to know what you want in your life to go forward with a real life commitment. You can't just decide, well, oh, they're beautiful, so I'm going to take that one. Sometimes the most beautiful people turn out to be the most despicable and ugly people on earth. And it's not about, and some of the most awful people, he didn't like my picture, I didn't like his, so. But the rest of it was beautiful about both of us. Right?
May I just say that you guys are great together. This class has been awesome. You know, you guys should go on the road and perform for everyone. This is great.
We're going home after an hour.
Yeah, that's a real show. Yeah.
The last thing I would say
It's important to know what you want in life so that you don't make the mistake of choosing beauty over substance.
And we're going to come to that class next time, inshallah, how to choose. Okay, that is very important. But the last thing I would say that some of the scholars being asked, he says, which one is better? That a person who devotes himself to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, in the masjid, in his home, everything, and leave marriage, or a person who seeking marriage and get married. He says the person who seeks marriage to start a family is more important than the person who devotes himself to the worship of Allah. They have a few exceptions in that. The person who is seeking the knowledge, so he can teach others. He spend that span of his life in learning Islam, and religion, so he can teach others. And that, yes, probably there's an exception because he's going to benefit others in that. Okay, so this is the beauty of marriage in this life, and also you may see it in the, inshallah ta'ala, in the hereafter. Because the wife in life here, she may become your, if you want, your wife in paradise. This sheikh was giving,
I had a friend that asked
he was giving the
khutbah.
This sheikh was delivering a khutbah. And he was talking about the day of judgment in paradise. And he was saying that in paradise, when a man, he comes to his palace and he would see those beautiful hurriya waiting for him and grab him and entering his paradise. And he says, you know, he says, oh, this is, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing. He says, no, we have not seen anything yet. They take him inside and see a more beautiful hurriya. He says, wow, this is great. I could not believe. And they take him inside. He says, well, just wait. They took him inside. The sheikh was saying the khutbah, and he would see his wife sitting there, so beautiful, waiting for him. And a man stood. Please, brother, stop, don't go further. Maybe it's a weak hadith. Maybe it's not true. We're going to check it out. It's not some hadith. He doesn't want to be
But what he forgot is the knowledge that when a woman reaches paradise, she's more beautiful than the Hurriyin.
And it is not like the similar relationship that you would have in
and it's nothing like the you forgot to bring home my vegetables that I asked for.
Happened years ago. My husband told me, he said, if anything were to happen to me, I would like for you to marry one of my brothers. That's why I did that. Like, they're like little brothers to me and stuff. And I said, well, I'm sure your brothers with their wives and their children will be just thrilled to get their older brother's wife who is older than them and has 3 kids. They'll be like, all right. You know, and their wives will be thrilled too. I said, no, I don't agree to that. I prefer just to never marry again. I said, that way we'd be married in Jannah. He said, you mean I'm not going to get rid of you then either? I said, nope. You signed the contract, buddy.
And there's life in the hereafter.
But you know, we make fun and we laugh about it and stuff, and it's a good comedy act sometimes, you know. But really, when you really get down to it, when your wife stands beside you or your husband stands beside you when you're going through those difficult times, because one of us may end up sick, and we've just lost Kana recently, a very dear brother, that his wife was very supportive and wonderful and big caregiver to him. And he died happy with his wife. Imagine that reward. He died happy with his wife. This is what we should strive to do for our husbands, and that is what our husbands should strive to do for us. Because when one or the other passes away and they're happy with the other, that's a huge reward.
Because there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever did that, like when she or he died where the other partner is satisfied, happy from them, Prophet ﷺ, he says the reward is Jannah. And in the day of judgment, they will come and they will choose any doors of the Jannah to enter. Any door. It is your choice. So that's why it's really important. I'm sorry I took in a lot of time. I like this kind of discussion. That's why I wanted it to be like this instead of me just giving lectures and stuff like that. It is important. Is this the way that you want? Because we're going to talk about responsibility and we're going to talk about how you choose. Okay?
And what you're allowed to ask for
and
what
you'll
you're not allowed
have
to
a
ask
different
for.
person give these lectures next time.
He'll just leave me at home next time.
No, we just bring popcorn next time.
You need to cook next time.
Pay per view.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah.
10 o'clock.
Jazakumullah khair.
Well, yeah, you can go with me.
I want to see if I can get a change of clothes and I'm going to
Go ahead. You can go with him if you need to. Okay, everybody, pull out your Muhammad books, please. Assalamu alaikum. I'll see you later.
I'm going to grab my gun and my...
It's all in self-protection. He knows I understand him. He understands me. We're good. The beauty in... Oh, he's touching me. Oh. Okay, I'll see you later too. Anyway, the beauty of our marriage is my husband gives me my rights and I give him his. And that is the goal of any married couple, is to be able to know that you've given those rights willingly and that he has given those rights willingly. And that's where trust is built, and that's where that really unbreakable love is built as well. And the fact that when we got married, I prayed istikhara, he prayed istikhara. Like I said, he didn't like my pictures, I didn't like his. But as we're praying istikhara, there was nothing that sent us in a different direction. Every single time I prayed istikhara, subhanAllah, it was a harder life that I was living under. And it just became more and more difficult, and it wasn't I'm running from this life. I truly was waiting for some signs or feeling or direction. And I got the direction because I made a specific prayer. I want a husband who will teach me, be kind and compassionate with me, and who will love me and give me my rights as a wife and as a woman and as a sister in Islam. And I received all of those things in my husband, alhamdulillah. I'm very blessed, and my family-in-law is one of the best that I could have ever
I think
done.
it's even a good thing for us, and I tried to do this with my mother-in-law, is I come to like get along with my mother-in-law, she's wonderful, but you know people who don't get along with their in-laws. And I made a point of telling my mother-in-law, thank you for raising him.
Oh, yeah.
The way you raised him, because alhamdulillah, thanks to her, I have a good husband, and it's because,
Oh, I used to kiss my mother-in-law's hand and her forehead all the time for how she raised her children. My mother-in-law didn't like it, but I did it anyway. I used to wash her feet. I mean, everything I could do, I did to make her happy, because this is, and she never asked for it. But anyway, like I said, I loved her very dearly. She was very, very dear to my heart. Oh, my God. We're on chapter 36 this week. I hope everybody kind of has been keeping up. This was something of a chapter that is kind of, what did you think of it? What did you think about this chapter specifically? Anybody read this chapter specifically? You have an excuse, you haven't been here.
I haven't been for a minute.
Yeah.
I need to catch up, but.
You're good. Well, this chapter really talks about after the fall of Mecca. Yes, everybody enjoyed the donuts that were brought. Mashallah. She has no need to wait. Which kind you get? I want a maple one. Is there a maple one?
I don't know. I just told her just do the sort.
I love maple. And I got several, and they last time and there were none left. It's okay. They have a really good one, by the way. It's a maple filled bar. I was like, that's diabetic coma for most people. But I loved it. You can only eat half, like a fourth each time, but it's really good. Anyway, this is after the fall of Mecca, okay? And this is when we start getting into battles that were not against the Quraysh so much. This is where it starts dealing with different tribes that were still saying, okay, well, they took Quraysh, they took Mecca, but we're stronger than them. Look how they fell to them, you know. But this is where we start getting into some of the other battles, and this is, I think, also where a lot of the Western concept of Islam was spread by the sword comes in. Because in Islam, we know that we cannot force anyone to accept Islam under compulsion or force or bribery or any of this stuff. And this, we made mention of that in chapter 34, I think it was, where, come on, just accept Islam and keep your head, you know, don't mess up here. You're here, you're safe, do it. Well, that's not, this also brings in one of the instances where it's talking about the ability, where one brother was also saying, accept Islam, and if he didn't, he says, may Allah witness that this man did not accept Islam and he killed them. This is where I think a lot of the westernized theologists or theologians came up with this idea of Islam was spread by the sword. Yeah. And it is not accurate. We have to make this very clear because we know in Islam this is unacceptable. You cannot force, you can't even force your own children. If they are at an age where they can choose and you are forcing them to worship and be part of the Islamic belief and they choose not to be, this is unacceptable. However, if your children were born in your family and Muslim and raised as Muslims, you are required to make sure that they are doing their obligatory duties. You will be asked on the Day of Judgment if your children are praying, if your children were taught how to pray, if they were taught how to make wudu, if they were taught the true tawheed of Islam. And if you're questioned on what you've taught your children and what you've been, like at 7 you teach them how to pray and at 10 they get punished for not praying, right? Well, punished again, remember, or discipline or something like this. It's not beating your child till they can't walk. You know, this is unacceptable to leave marks or hit in anger or to be abusive in any shape, form, or fashion. Even to belittle a child is haram, it's abuse. It's not allowed. But anyway, there's a point where the Hawazin tribe were gathering their forces to fight the Muslims. And it's very specifically stated Muslims. However, the Muslims were now an army of 12,000, and many of them were not Muslim, and many of them were brand new Muslims, like very, very new. I mean, literally weeks old, right? And they decided they were going to bring their forces and just wipe out the Quraysh and the Muslims and the whatever, okay? They were led by Malik bin Ibn Auf, and they also worked with maybe 2 other tribes, I believe. But there were 2 tribes that were out. They didn't join the army. They were like, And there was a wise man who was talking about it. His name was Durayd. And he was like looking at Malik like, okay, I see you're ready for this, but are you ready for this? You know, what was he saying? What was his point?
He was saying, I mean, because Malik wanted them to bring their families to possessions and all those things to the battle and saying that
He
this would,
ordered them, right?
yeah, that this would motivate them, etc. And Julian was basically telling him that none of these people will be carrying swords. They're of no help to you in the battle.
Yeah.
So why put your families out there like that?
Now what you've done is if you lose everything. And if you don't lose, if you're still winning, you have no value in their presence except that they're there.
Well, Malik felt as if that was going to make them fight harder by
Yeah.
them having them back, which was way out there.
But that's what the Quraysh did too, remember, at one of
right.
the battles. They brought their women and
Right.
They
people.
didn't bring everything though.
They didn't bring everything. They brought a specific group of people. Yeah, but yeah.
They left some stuff back home.
But I mean, that strategy can work sometimes, like, because
It does.
the one that, the Muslim who invaded Spain, he did kind of the same, not necessarily exactly the same thing, but when the ships arrived in Spain, he burned the ships. So,
No going back.
so he said to them, you know, you have an enemy in front of you and there's the sea behind you.
Right.
You cannot go, you cannot swim your way to Morocco. And so they kept on going.
You were also kind of going like, here's all my stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Because
It
also.
didn't work for them, but.
Right. It has proven to work in the past. Okay, the other thing is that he was saying, the Ka'b tribe and the Kilab tribe stayed out because they saw no wisdom in this battle. They saw no gain. They see that you have no, he said actually, courage and determination are absent. They would not have been absent if the score was one of glory. That means their courage and their determination are not there, those two tribes, and that's what he was referring to. And without them, if glory was at the end of this, they would have been there. Because they're the opportunists, I guess in other words is what he's saying. And they would have lent the hand if they knew that there was a good outcome to this battle. So in other words, what are you thinking? You know? And so Malik still pushes on. He's like, what did he say?
He'd fall on his sword if they didn't do it.
Yes, and he said something to this old man. You have reached an age where, yeah.
age so you have no reason.
Yeah.
Age so you have no reason.
Yes.
Then he didn't want, if anything had changed, he didn't want the old man to get any glory for making him change his decision or anything.
Right. And again, we do recon, right? Again, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sends someone into the village or into the tribes and lets him embed himself in there for intelligence, recon, or whatever. So he goes in there and he's like, right, along with everybody else, he even talks to Malik bin Auf, right? And he's like, so what's up, you know? And they find out they've got all their property there.
Right for the
Big thing, huge. Also where they're going to. So there's another major piece of information. And when he comes back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, what does he say? He tells him, this is what I found, and what does the Prophet say?
Basically, it said he smiled like it would be good for the Muslims.
And he says very clearly, this will be a prize for the Muslims, God willing. Okay? Now, he always says God willing. Why is that important in our daily lives and everything we're trying to do or make? Why is inshallah?
Because it's everything is regardless of our efforts. It falls on the will of Allah. If Allah wills it, it will happen. If He doesn't, it will not.
He didn't say we will be victorious. In other situations, he did say we will be victorious. Why?
It probably revealed to him, wasn't it?
Allah told him the victory will be yours. It didn't have to be said, inshallah, at that point. However, at this point, inshallah was important to say.
It's
now,
in Quran too, as the story of the two men in the gardens, right? It specifically says, don't say you'll do such and such tomorrow without saying God willing.
Right. But it was also very clear that there's a verse in this chapter that talks about the Quranic. It is a Quranic verse that discusses that specific thing. Okay. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ approaches who? Who are all in this fight? Abu Safwan.
Yeah.
No, Safwan ibn Umayyah. Yeah. Now who is this man?
That's the one he had given, well, Sufwan actually asked for 2 months to decide if he was going to become Muslim, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, gave him 4 months, said take 4.
You're good, right? Okay, so he asked him for his assistance, right? And he approached many of the non-Muslims. Now why is that important to know that he approached non-Muslims?
It becomes kind of a point to mention in Islamic rulings that you can approach non-Muslims for
Does that contradict anything in Islam?
No.
So why are all of us jumping at saying, you can't ask the non-Muslims for help, you can't ask for this, you can't do that, who are we to say that when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for the assistance of non-believers, who were not just non-believers, they were idolaters. If we're asking for assistance, we're usually asking the Christians or the Jewish people, right? We're not asking idolaters. Well, some maybe, but we don't know that. But it's important to know that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to these non-believers and did ask for their assistance. When he did ask for their assistance, yes.
I have a question in regard to that, going to non-Muslims for assistance and that kind of thing. And then correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there something in the Sunnah or in Islam in general where you're not really, or where you can't really hold non-Muslims to their oaths or something like that? Or?
They're not Muslims, so we cannot hold them by the same standards we hold other Muslims by and ourselves by. We are also not allowed to take, which means like, don't tell anybody, this is my private business, don't share my information with others. You can't expect that they will hold to that. You can hope and pray for that, but you shouldn't be sharing that information if you need it to stay private. But I say that among Muslims as well.
Yeah.
If you don't want to hear it again, don't say it.
Yeah.
Honestly, these people were under the protection of the Muslims also.
Right.
So that also gave them a different relationship. Also, you're under our protection, so
It was pretty much
help me
treaty
protect
time.
you.
But also what's important to know is that when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for their assistance, he was trusting that they would uphold their side of working with the army as well, because he didn't put them in leadership positions, but he did have them fighting alongside with Muslims.
And I think it's important, like you just stated, in the Quran, to get back to your point, and correct me if I'm wrong, brother, the word awliya?
Awliya, yes.
Right, so in guardian, protectors, guardians of you. And so you can use them to, if they have weapons that you need, but as far as them being your guardian, that's not just in that, but that's even in your faith, in the deen, in interpreting Quran. That's what Allah was telling Prophet Muhammad.
So that's really a very good point. Like, are you asking for assistance where you become indebted to them to an extent that they can impose on you conditions and laws and regulations that are contradictory to your religion, and therefore you have no ability to say no.
You have to be intelligent in how you.
Or are you in a state of collaboration where it's a common good for both?
But it always falls on a Muslim to be the sole protector of the uliya.
So you want to stay on, in an independent.
Right. Okay.
You don't give too much power to anybody, and that's just clear.
Right.
And even for a Muslim, you don't give. I would never give and I respect highly Dr. Hussein, but I would never give him power over me more than I give my husband, for example. He's not my guardian. My husband is my guardian. My husband is who has rights on me and I have rights on him. He has rights on me and I have rights on him, but they are very different.
That's power of information too.
Yes.
She would want to give him information that could cause
me to be under, and that goes for any human being, not just, but specifically for non-believers. We don't put ourselves in a weaker standing, and I think that's, if we really want to use a good example, we're looking at Palestine. We should never give a certain level that we're able to be taken down because of it. You have to be wise in your stand, and that's a human being anyway, no matter what. You don't give somebody the information to come and rob you. You just don't. I don't care who you are.
I love get on Facebook.
That would mean you're not ready to get married. That would be a mental capacity issue here.
So what this brings about is the issue of there is worry of a person over a person, but there's also a wali of a group over another group, like
Yes.
So what you're talking about, wali of a person over another person, like a woman who's getting married, or someone who needs help and needs a wali for whatever reason, whether it's man or woman. But of course, as Muslims as a group, if they are to have another wali, it should be a Muslim group. It should not,
Yes.
because it is giving up some independence.
Yes. And it is putting you in a weaker position. And that's strategy of life, anyway.
So he gave him like
Safwan
100
asked-
shields, right? Was it 100 shields?
Yeah, Safwan asked him, okay,
Yeah,
you
are
want
you gonna
my,
take it? Are you gonna take it by force?
what exactly you want with my stuff is what he's saying to him, right?
Mhm.
So do you want to take those arms by force, Muhammad? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet answered, no. We want to borrow them, and we guarantee to return them to you. In other words, he's not just confiscating what he needs. He's taking permission to use them, and he's agreeing, guaranteeing that they will be returned to him after the use is done. This is important because we don't say things lightly. If we are going to do something for someone, we better make sure we do everything in our power to do so. We should never speak lightly and say, well, I don't mind coming and picking you up for work for the next week. It'll be okay. I can get you, And then every morning you're like, I overslept. I didn't wake up. I just don't want to go. Can you, husband, tell me I'm not allowed to take her? Stuff happens. People do things like this. So you have a situation where you're not keeping your word and you're using people or making a promise to someone that you're not willing to fulfill, and you kind of already know that before you do it, So make sure when you're making an oath that you're giving your word on something, and I'm really specific about this, and a lot of people think I'm being arrogant about it, and it may be a touch of arrogance, but my name is on something, I want it to be almost as perfect as possible. I don't want it to be, okay, like students went to Bumpus Middle School to do a culture day, and first day I went to observe their speeches, I was like, no, we're not doing this, because culture all of a sudden turned into an Islamic dawah session. And I was like, they didn't ask us there for explaining Islam. They asked us there to explain the cultures we represent at our school. That's where we should stay on point. I'm not going to tell somebody that we're coming to talk about culture and then we go there and give a persuasive speech. It was a persuasive speech on Islam. It was there were some things in there. I was appalled. And I told Jason and I told Brother Ziad, I'm appalled. And they said, why? And Jason was like, I know. I've been trying to say it all week long and they're not listening to me. But the point is, when I've committed to something, I know the amana I'm accepting. And it is a trust. And it is between you, Allah, and that person. It's not just between you and that person, so if you make them upset with you, it's no big deal. It's between you, Allah, and that person. So you don't make a promise you're not willing to do everything in your power to fulfill. So therefore, when he asked to borrow those shields, that's what he meant. And that's what he did. But, yes.
Also, I liked the fact that, he knew that the prophet is an honorable man. He knew that his word was
honorable, yeah.
Right. He knew that there was no doubt that he was going to do what he said.
Yes. And he trusted it very quickly.
Right.
The other thing, the man is in a position of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
He is under the rule of the Muslims.
Very good point.
And so that's kind of like the background of the situation. But it's also by the Prophet saying, I'm borrowing and I'm giving it back. He's giving the exact conditions of the transaction.
And asking permission.
Yeah. And he's asking permission, but also he's telling him what he will get in return.
Yes.
And so it is a clear transaction of, like, there's not a hidden...
But there's a hidden respect factor that's being given to him. He's not just saying, well, yeah, you're under my rule, I can take whatever I want.
But
He's saying, can I borrow these, and I promise to return them back.
But something similar to it in today's language and politics. For example, someone running for office, and then another one gives them money, and well, if that one is giving lots of money, then he's not expecting that money back. He's expecting power back. It's
Yes.
But also I look at this, and I'll move on. that since he hadn't accepted, I'm thinking that he hadn't accepted
Still.
Islam at that time. By him seeing that and the way the prophet was doing, that was going to encourage him even more.
And it does make
That I
mention
need to do
later.
this. I mean, this is the right religion.
And so, 2 years prior to this, the people that went to Umrah were only 1,400 people. There were the army grew the Muslims grew quite large between the Umrah and conquering Mecca. But at this point, about 2,000 people were added to the army. Okay, that in itself means they were about 12,000 people. Now, I want you to keep that in mind when we talk a little bit further into the chapter where it's talking about when battle was taking place, okay? 12,000 people, not all of them were, about 2,000 were new. That doesn't mean that they were new to Islam, 2,000. That means the entire large, addition to the army were among new Muslims as well as non-believers, okay? This needs to be very clear.
Question, Sister
Yes.
Mary. Was the 2,000 new or none? I thought the 2,000
They were
were
mixed.
non-Muslims.
No, they were mixed.
They were mixed?
They were swollen by 2,000 members.
Gotcha.
Therefore, many of them were new and many of them were
Said
not
some of
Muslim
them
at all.
still non-Muslim.
Yes. And they all went to war together because at this point, they're trusting each other to have each other's back, right? I got your back, you got mine, we'll be good, okay? So, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gives leadership to different Muslim members of the army, which were mostly among the Muhajirin and the Ansar, not brand new Muslims. This is also very important to note, that we do not, and this is where I beg all of you to understand that when you enter Islam, and you come to the masjid and you're so excited about your religion and you're so spiritual and you're so willing to help, don't offer everything. You want to help, we want your help, but don't offer because these people have very few volunteers, so they will take you and they will use you till you say, I can't help anymore. But that's because we have so many things that we're trying to do as a complete society and different activities and really trying to fulfill the needs of all of the members of the community. But there are certain things like babysitting during Ramadan. This should not be your job, ever.
During a wedding, I had two new Muslims at a wedding I was at, and they were having a heart attack. And I was like, who put them in there?
Our children are special, and we have very special parents too. And if you are brand new and you think everybody's wonderful, you will be woken up very quickly. Don't volunteer to serve food, ever. Volunteer to hand out napkins, great.
You need 10 years under your belt before you start handing out food to Muslims after a day of fasting.
Yeah,
it's true.
but it's really my advice. Now, if you choose to continue that, don't come cry to me later. Don't cry and woe is me after I've already given you the advice and pass the word on.
Babysitting, because the kids are the ones that will drive you to distraction.
But then the parents come in and say, my baby's an angel. Of course he didn't do that. Yeah, he did. Which, I don't know what your definition of angel is, but it's not the same as mine.
And also, two members of our class who were very mild-mannered ladies had been put in this babysitting job, who had accepted a job, I'm sure,
Where a 4-year-old says, you're not my mama.
Yeah.
I don't have to listen to you.
Right. Yeah, and they were having a really
Now,
hard
had they ever
time.
said that to me,
He was shaking the change out his pockets upside down.
I would have taken the ear and I would have brought him to his mama and I would have said, now, mama, watch. And we would have dealt with that situation. But
Miriam wasn't there at the wedding, so I put a groove in the floor between the wedding and the babysitting room, going back and forth. And there was a kid that was not in babysitting who yelled at one of our women. I was like, I don't think so.
But anyway, the point is, make sure that when you're offering your assistance, make sure that you're capable of handling that because it is, like any other society, not perfect. We are not perfect. Yes.
And I think it's also cultural where Americans are more used to volunteerism.
Well, we're used to that as coming from Christianity. In Christianity, you do everything, and we're not the same group of people. Honestly, in most of the churches, and I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced or any bias at all, but I am biased. I've been to many a church. I was there as a Christian. I've been there as a Muslim. When people go to church, they're on their very best behavior. Their mama has scared the living tar out of them from the day they were born, that if they make them embarrassed, they're gonna suffer. So they go there in the best of behavior. Our children come here and we let them go. And not only that, but we also take freedom, and when we do that, it's okay as long as everybody understands the rules and the regulations, and as long as they understand that I don't know how to let rules go. I can't help it. We as Muslims should be better, but we have a society that we do give our children freedoms because we feel they're completely under protection in the masjid, whereas we may need some protection from the children, But honestly,
We need a car windshield.
Yes. So we need to just be real. Now, I'm going to go back into this. So we are dealing with the fact that they've promised, now they're 12,000, they're some new, some not Muslim even, all agreed to put their forces toward this effort. They all go into this relaxed. This is the first battle they go into relaxed because of what?
Numbers.
They have the numbers. They're not worried. They're not going to suffer a defeat because we have the numbers, right?
For the first time.
For the first time ever. So even the Ansar and the Muhajirin are relaxed. Never had that ever happened before. Now,
also still the kind of glow of coming back into Mecca,
victory.
Like, man, we got back home. We did almost like we goal
been
accomplished,
victorious.
mission accomplished, or whatever you but the other, mission accomplished. Bless his heart, I really do feel sorry for them.
Yes.
But you got that kind of glow and that.
And they also think they have the upper hand by getting all that information from the recon that they sent this man to spy, and they got this information where they're going to land and all of that, right? So they get into this area, and it's before daybreak, right? And Malik was very strategic in his movements, not always smart in all of his decisions, but he was very strategic in the fact that he hid. He hid his archers, he had them lined up already before the prophet even got there. And the prophet's intention was to catch them by surprise, again, to not have as much bloodshed, right? So they get to Khaybar. Wait, is it Khaybar? No.
Khaybar's the battle with the Jews, wasn't it?
Hunayn. It's the Valley of Hunayn, sorry. Yes, Khaybar was good. Yes, you're right. Anyway, then they think they're going to surprise them, they are showered by arrows, right? And so everybody's sent in chaos. The entire Muslim army was sent running and scattering in all directions to protect themselves, correct? Okay. What did the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do at this point?
Matt called them back, asked them where were they going, that specifically against the prophet of God.
I am Allah's prophet. Come back, right? Now, at this point, that also diffuses the fact that he used to tell the people to tie their legs so they couldn't run, right? Remember in the movie The Message, it states that they would tie their legs. This is not allowed in Islam. This is this is why I say The Message, though it's a beautiful telling of the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it is not completely accurate. Islam does not allow you to tie your leg where you can't get up and run if you need to save your life, because you can do that. There's nothing in Islam that says you cannot retreat.
It's the total end of the spectrum of running away and not doing what you need.
Then there's something they say it has to be like a strategic retreat.
Well, it also has to be if you find that you're faced with 20 people in front of one person, you're allowed to leave.
Well, no, I mean like when they say leave. When they see leave, don't they mean like abandoning your army?
Right. That's what Monica was saying. It's a very huge differentiation between the two concepts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
One is that you're never allowed to retreat for strategy, and the other is you're abandoning the army. Okay, there's two different Abandonment is haram. Retreating to save your life is allowed because you're not retreating to disappear for good. You're not, you're not AWOL.
You're disappearing.
Right.
You're or
Yeah.
coming back and assisting somebody else. If you can get away to come back and fight again, there's no haram in that. Okay? But it does not mean, okay, I've got 5 Muslims in front of me, I'm behind them, there's 20 people coming at me, I'm gonna run before they even start the battle because I don't trust these 5 in front of me to do anything about the 20, right? That's abandonment. That's abandonment. But when you have a bunch against one person and you leave open, the foot thing down.
Walaikum salam.
So there's the difference. Anyway, so Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, come back, I'm the messenger of God, right? So they're not hearing him because it's utter chaos, right? So what does he do?
One of the brothers that can speak real
What brother?
You know how we
Al-Abbas. Al-Abbas, who is his uncle.
Right.
His uncle who was known for his loud voice. Now see, he uses people strategically. He didn't bring up Abu Bakr who was soft-spoken and he brought Al-Abbas.
That would be our job, Miriam.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. I swear to God, I had you and me in mind.
I know, we are.
I was like,
We know
he
who
would
we
have
are.
been saying, Miriam, Monica, come here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We've been told to do that, actually. Tell them to be quiet.
Yes. Or can you announce this in the middle of everybody eating during Ramadan?
Yeah.
It's like,
They don't throw things at
anyway, so yeah, it was that too. Anyway, but so he says, come back, this is Allah's messenger, come back. And so they come back. And at this point, what is the overwhelming feeling? How many people are with the Prophet at this point?
Maybe 100. I think I read something about 100.
There's about 100 after he finished calling people back. But before that, the number is as low as 10 people stayed with the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, against all of those archers and everything. Okay? So at one point, there was a man who came and said, Safwan ibn Umayyah, I have good news. I brought you good news. I am bringing you the happy news of the defeat of Muhammad and his companions. By God, they will never be able to make amends for this defeat. Safwan answered angrily. Now look, this is the transition from the man who was running to Yemen to save himself rather than to be conquered by the Muslims, right? The man who was so arrogant, he's not ever going to be at the hands of the Muslims, right? Which was very, very treacherous at that time. To this point, he answers angrily, you describe the victory under the leadership of a man from the Quraysh, of the Bedouin Arabs as happy news. I would much sooner be under the leadership of a man from the Quraysh than under the leadership of a Bedouin. And those were the people who used to be his allies, those Bedouin people. Now he's not being like prejudiced against a group or not. He's saying, I have found, look at what he's saying. SubhanAllah, in this short amount of time that Prophet Muhammad said, you have safety to this point of this battle, the change in this man's heart. I would rather he forsake his old allies, he had forsaken them. To be led by Muhammad would have been much better for him than to be led by his old allies. SubhanAllah. So and how many times do I say, SubhanAllah, I don't know if you've heard me many times, I see people who are learning about Islam. There are several that I've looked at them, I've talked with them very easily. I think I spoke with, even I said this to Brother Miguel. I'm going to just say you're Muslim in your heart already, but when you're ready to say it out loud, I'm here for you. Because usually our heart is conquered prior to our tongue. Islam enters our heart before it enters our ability to say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Because all the rest of it gets us busy, like what if this happens and what if that happens. But the truth is already in your heart. Okay? Okay. couple more things, and I want to make it very clear. I want to read the verse. We're not going to go into a whole. We didn't get hardly. I'm a little late today.
Oh, so are the rest of us. You barely beat half of us in here.
So anyway, so that's the part about Safwan bin Umayyah. And at this point, when he's rallying the troops and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has gotten his people back around him, this is what I wanted to talk about, was where that's part of it. But there's a specific man who was against 10. That's what I want to talk about. Rallying the troops, this is where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ faces his enemy and picks up the dust and throws it in their eyes. And there's a mentioning that when he did so, all of the soldiers felt the dust in their eyes, not just the one that he threw it on. Okay? But in effect, he's telling them, I'm blackening your face, you've lost. You know, because
faces are blackened.
Yeah. And then we have Abbas is explaining, you are the people who welcomed the Prophet. Where are you going? Stay with your Prophet, okay? Then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says your faces are blackened. Then as the people noticed that the battle was not lost, they kept coming back. You see, this is where I was talking about different to run to safety than abandonment. They didn't run and continue running and leaving. They ran only to be able to regroup and come back. And they did. They came back, and many, many, many came back. And this is also, there's a specific mention about I had something really important I wanted to say about this. I'm going to read the Quranic ayah. Okay, Malik bin Auf runs. He's gone. Because now he saw that the battle is lost for his side. Okay, because how did we take over and then they took back over? Oh my God. So he ran. He left the cattle, he left the women, and he left the children. So he was like exactly as Durayd mentioned. Now you've lost. You know, now you've left everything. So the Quran actually mentions in chapter 9, verses 25 and 26, on the day of Hunayn, and it's specific, on the day of Hunayn, when you were pleased at your numerical power, you found out that it was of no avail to you. The vast expanse of the earth seemed to you very narrow, and you began to flee. Then God sent down his reassurance and tranquility on his messenger and on the believers. And he dispatched soldiers whom you did not see and inflicted suffering on the unbelievers. That is the rightful reward for those who reject the faith. So in other words, you thought you were going to win because of the numbers, but you will only win because I allow you to win. Doesn't matter how big you are. I mean, you look at David and Goliath, if you really want to talk about it. You've got Prophet Dawood, who conquered an entire army of the Goliath. You know, in Christianity, we think of it as one man against another man, the giant against the one man. That's not the Islamic concept of David and Goliath. Goliath was an entire tribe of people. And Dawood was the leader of the army, the Muslim army, and therefore when he conquered them, Dawood was a very small group, whereas Goliath was a huge number of people. And only because Allah allowed him to take that victory, he took the victory. We have to constantly be keeping that in mind. It's not the size of what we are, it's the substance of what we are. It is not the actions that we make that gives us the success. It's the faith, the action, and the effort. You have to put forth the effort. You can never just say, well, if God wants it to be, it will be. You don't say, Inshallah, the train won't hit me and stand on the railroad tracks. You say, Inshallah, it won't hit me because I'm jumping off this railroad track. You know, I'm running.
Use the sense God gave you.
Yes. Anyway, so also in, it's mentioned 2 times in the Quran, other than that place, that chapter 3, 126, and chapter 8, verse 10. Victory is granted only by God. We have to make sure that we're not taking full, props for that. What is it called?
There. I was like, I know it.
Props works though.
Yeah.
In the street, they know what you're talking about.
But I didn't mean to be all. Anyway, so it's very mentioned, don't take credit for something that you had no ability to create for yourself. Allah gave you that victory, not yourself. Okay? And then this is what I wanted to get to, and I promise after this we'll kind of stop, I think. Amr bin, what is it? Amr? No, it's Abu Amir al-Ashari. Okay, Ubayd Abu Amir. A battle erupted between the two sides, and it soon appeared that the battle would be resolved for the Muslims' favor. Abu Amir himself fought 10 brothers of the enemy soldiers, one after the other. And this is where I was talking about how the Western theologists or theologians may have gotten to the point where they say that Islam is spread by the sword. Because of stories like this, but they're misunderstood and they're misquoted. Needs really to be understood clearly. And it will explain that also in the same exact mentioning. Okay? Abu Amir said to each person who, every time one of them stood up to the Muslim commander, the latter called on him to accept Islam. When he did not respond, Abu Amir said, "My Lord, be witness to his rejection." Then Abu Amir killed him. Now, what does that mean?
Many levels of, you can go many levels with that. Islam itself means peace.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the Salam.
Accept Islam.
Right.
What does that mean? Like you said, many different levels.
Yeah.
Can accept the fact that we have the right to our religion.
Right.
It could mean accept Islam as your religion. It could mean, so there's many different connotations on this one statement.
Kind of when you get to the 10th man, that's going to kind of open it up where you can
and
understand.
And this is where,
that.
exactly. Then we get to, so be witness to his rejection, be witness to his rejection, be witness. And he killed each person till the 10th. Mm-hmm. The 10th comes, Assalamu alaikum. The 10th comes and he said,
excuse me, I'm sorry
you're
about
fine. Is there any way to turn the AC?
Yeah, let me.
Please, thank you. So he gets to the 10th one, and it says he killed 9 of the 10 brothers in this way, calling on them one by one to accept Islam, and praying with the 10th, praying God to be his witness when they did not respond. When he clashed with the 10th, again he called on him to accept Islam. The man did not respond. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no. Okay, he stayed silent. Then Abu Amir said, "My Lord, be witness to this rejection." The man said, "My Lord, do not be witness." What does that mean?
He's rejected.
He said, "I didn't reject, but I also didn't accept." He stayed silent. He didn't say, "No, I don't accept Islam's rights. I don't accept this as a religion. I don't accept any part of the whole thing." He stayed silent. So he answered back to Abu Abbas, or Abu Amir, saying, "My Lord, do not be witness." So what does Abu Amir do? Lets him go. He says, "Okay, you didn't reject. You didn't accept it. You didn't reject. So we're done." In other words, I can't force you to accept this, but you also are not fighting me any longer. There's the key. If there's no obstacle or defiance in it, you cannot continue to battle. You are not allowed to do that. Islam does not allow you to just like when they entered Mecca. Those who chose not to fight or to make any waves in the process of entering Mecca, they didn't fight, and they were free. They were pardoned. Even the most atrocious of them were pardoned because they stayed home. There's the beauty of Islam. You also have the fact that we are told you cannot force Islam on another.
This is why I wanted to make this very clear. As you read this story, they forget the last part of it. The last part is left out, where it says, but the one who didn't reject and didn't agree was let free. That's the true Islamic behavior. Also, at one point, Prophet Muhammad
they also leave out the first point that the first 9 had already been in one attack, had intentions to attack,
right,
and they were in actual battle. It wasn't as if the Muslims just popped up on a group and was gonna, they knew what was going on.
I'll tell you something that was heavy to me, Sister Mary, was, and I may be jumping a little too far.
Uh-huh.
But when Malik and his people at Taif were in the towers, if you will, and they were waiting them out, if you will, that he later on said that, maybe it was a prayer almost that the offspring would be more peaceful.
These were the same ones that when he had went to them for help.
Yes.
These are the same people that when he went to them for help, they threw
They ordered the slaves and the children to demean him and
he
torture
still,
him.
that lets you know, kind of like Brother Muhammad was always used to saying about how he wanted to see the compassion of the prophet. When the angel came to him then, he didn't destroy them then.
That, and also there's 2 other points in this that I really want to draw attention to, the compassion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One is when they were taking siege to the city of Taif. They tried many things to enter that city. They tried many techniques to take over and be able to draw them out or to battle them in some way, belittling the people. You're afraid, you have no courage, you're weak, you're this. To the extent they started cutting the vines, and the leaders of the city of Taif said, don't do this. This is destruction. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, stop. Don't continue that. Don't do this.
And also seeing a
that he's in the act of war.
Not only did they ask him to stop, they said, don't do so for the sake of God and kinship.
But the fact is that
this isn't even the actual
any other thing that they had done, they just didn't bother them. But and they were at this point very frustrated, like, how are we gonna get these people? What are we gonna do? This is 20 days later, right? And then they see that, maybe
When
not
the slaves
completely
came
20
out
days
and
later.
that they were
Then he offers them, the slaves, any slave who leaves the city of Taif will be freed immediately. Not told, if you accept Islam, you'll be freed immediately, but any slave who leaves the city of Taif will be set free immediately. Okay? They come out and give the knowledge that they're in there for at least a year.
You got some intelligence.
You want to stay out here, it's okay, but they're hunkered down and they'll be fine for at least a year. And then at that point, they're going to fight to the last man. So this is useless. What are you doing? Can you handle a year out here? And the sacred months are entering. We're not allowed to kill or hurt or be at war with anyone during certain specific Islamic months. And so
first 7th, 11th, and 12th month of the Islamic calendar.
And I think this is important to show, if you will, and I always like to reflect back in 2014, that you have to look at the temperament when you're battling whatever you're battling. We all are battling something. And there's a certain temperament. If we look at Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his temperament was always the same regardless of the obstacle, because his faith was strong. And he had patience, and it's just when you have those things, you can conquer the great obstacles that come before you.
Yes.
So inshallah, I pray that we see that in 2014.
Especially the Sabbath. Patience.
Patience is key.
It wasn't about their own pride, about like Abu Amir wasn't killing those men because they were refusing him. It was because they were refusing Allah. It wasn't about Prophet Muhammad saying, how dare you talk back to me this way. It was always about God.
Everything is about pleasing Allah.
Yes. And then also, the other thing I really wanted to bring attention to is the fact that when Prophet Muhammad came across one of the women who was killed.
Right.
This is such, and it always touches me, because of course I'm a woman, but it also makes it clear to me, because I've seen so many other battles and so many other situations that people could give a flip about any of the weaker sex. You have the children, you have the elderly, and you have the women that were extremely protected at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Whereas nowadays, they're the first to lose in everything.
Syria. What's happening to the women in Syria?
Kosovo,
Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry. Go to Bosnia. How the rape
God.
and murder and
The cutting
torture.
open of a pregnant woman with a vet on whether it was male or female. Oh my
absolutely
God. What
atrocious
human being?
actions that have been done to women throughout history. And if you really think about it, Islam gave us these rights for over 1400 years ago. And to not be thankful for that alone, even for the brothers, to be thankful for that alone, because you're alive because nobody was able to do that to your mom. We're alive because no one's allowed to do that to us. And alhamdulillah, through the grace of God, we're all able to be in a situation that's better than some of the situations other women and people have been suffering. But it's important to say that when he came across this woman, and she was dead and she was from among the enemy, okay, this is clear. She was an enemy she was part of the enemy force that was against Islam, and he came across her and found her dead. He was very upset. He found out it was under the command of Khalid ibn al-Walid. He immediately dispatched a message to Khalid ordering him not to kill any child, woman, or elderly man. It was not for the Muslims to kill women, making it very clear, don't do this. This is not Islamic behavior. You are a Muslim. You are above this type of behavior. Never do this type of treatment. That also goes with even respect. You take any woman out of in Muslim society, it doesn't mean that people adhere to all the rules. And this is one of the things that was a debate among the kids when they were saying we have to, and it's haram and it's required and it's this and we have to do this. Okay, you have to, we know it's a rule. So the command is this. Whether we follow it or not is our choice. And that's where we are allowed to receive reward or sin. Just like Ahmed was saying about halal to be married, haram to get married or not to be married, these are the things that we have to understand. And I'm glad he brought attention to those several words that he was discussing. Halal means it's a good thing. Haram, if you don't do it, means you're going to commit a sin if you don't do it, just like praying. It's haram not to pray. We will commit sin. It's not a choice whether we do that or not. It is required to fast unless you have the exemption. You don't get to just not do that. You can not do that with the outcome being sin and committing yourself to the hellfire. And that's really what we do when we do that. Anyway, so after all this time, the slaves have come out. Okay, so what do we do? And he asks Naufal his opinion, and he says it seemed that prolonging the siege would be of little use. So he takes what is this called when we ask others, when we get everybody together? It's called shura, and it's called consultation, where you're getting the opinion of the majority or people who know about this type of stuff. And you take their opinion. You're still the leader and able to make the decision, but you're asking and consulting with others so that you don't make a decision that is not in the best interest of the people. Okay? So this is called shura. So he asks Nawfal ibn al-Muawiyah
Some heavy names in there.
yes, and said to him,
heavy names.
they are just like a fox in a hole. If you exhaust the fox's patience, you will get it out. If you leave it alone, it can cause you no harm. So let's go. Leave it alone. They're not going to mess with us. But if we keep pushing at them, maybe we lose a lot more than they lose, you know. But go, let's go. So they left, and in this is where Brother Nadir was talking about the city of Taif, how they had tortured him and sent the slaves and the children, and Muhammad he had to run and seek.
That's when the angel came.
And the angel Jibril, and I used to think it was the angel of the mountains, and I have said that several times in the class, so I'm correcting that now. It was the angel Jibril who came to Prophet Muhammad upon him and said, if you wish it to be, I will take these two mountains and crush that city. And the Prophet said, no, because I pray that out of their offspring, they will be good Muslims and of good,
That's heavy. Man, that's heavy.
I would rather leave them a while in the hope that God will make their offspring people who worship Him alone and do not ascribe divinity to anyone other than Him. So this is the dua he made, but also his wish was clear. Leave them, and may Allah bring from them good, strong Muslims who believe only in Allah. Okay?
If you ever have the opportunity to go to Taif, if you go on Hajj or Umrah,
Go.
because it will
gracious
solidify
and
this
loving
stuff in your head, because going up to Taif in a car is freaky. I mean, the roads and the mountains, and you imagine marching up in there and fighting people. There was a bridge, and I was like, how in the world did they build that bridge? You know, and you're walking up here.
You haven't seen
Oh my
anything
gosh.
till you get to
And they are, and what happened to the city of Taif? They are well known for being a very religious city as a whole, you know.
And then here again,
conservative.
now the Prophet still hoped that the Thaqif, who are the tribe of Taif, would come around. One of his companions suggested that they should pray to God to destroy them. And what does Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? May my Lord guide the Thaqif to the truth and relieve us of their burden. Bring them to Islam, in other words, and take from us the trouble of their trying to give us any harm. Okay? Then, but not only that, but it was a burden on the Prophet's heart. If you think, this is even deeper. You think about the people of Taif. He loved them so much and wished so much good from them that it was burdening his heart that they were still not Muslims. It hurt his heart that they're still not having accepted Islam. He didn't force them. He prayed Allah to guide them.
And that's important
But
what
it
you
hurt
stated.
him not to know that they were Muslim.
That's what we have to be reminded of when we meet and we're around more non-Muslims than Muslims. And a lot of us, I say us, because I'm just include myself too. I remind myself that used to be me.
Yes.
The very people we're talking about. You hear brothers calling this and that. That used to be you.
I've told my
And then
mom, I hope you're not wearing that rag on your head when you come pick me up at the airport. I called her hijab a rag. And now I'm the raghead and she's not. You know, but that's true. We have to remember where we came from. We didn't come into the place we're at now. And in 10 years, you're not going to be in the same place you are now. I hope and pray. I hope and pray. We should always be trying to better ourselves and better our knowledge and our actions, not just our knowledge. We have to perfect what we know to be true, and we have to improve on everything every day. This is our job. It is not acceptable to sit in limbo and not move forward. When you sit still, you're losing. Just like Ahmed was explaining, the people, when they get to the paradise and they are entering from any gate they choose, they will wish just to go back to live more challenges so that they can even find the better reward. Why would you sit still or not do what Allah has commanded you to do when you could be improving every bit, every day?
And you know what's heavy? That word in English is also idol, I-D-L-E. Think about that.
Yes.
We're talking about idol worshipers, I-D-O-L. But now, when you're sitting still, you're idol.
Yes, you're idle.
That's a lot of messages in there.
You're not moving forward. That means you're sitting and you're not getting any of the reward you could be taking full advantage of. That's sad. Yes, Muhammad.
You mentioned about the book says angel of Gabriel comes as Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You led me to, destroy these two, mountain and let them. We all know that angels, they just take commands. They don't come say do this and that. If they come from the Allah.
Yeah.
So,
but that's
what
what
is the
it
situation?
says
Situation is that why angels come, say let me do this. If it is not I'm sure that is from the
It
command of
says
Allah.
the prophet had gone to Taif seeking this, and then it says how the angel Jibril, at that point, the angel Jibril came to him to say, Muhammad, your Lord has sent me to give you his greetings.
Okay.
Salamu alaikum to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from Allah through Angel Gabriel. And when we get to the back of this book, you're going to not be able to hear my voice because I'll be crying a lot. It's a beautiful, beautiful telling of the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But it is extremely emotional, because when you think of the importance and the level of respect that was given to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the angels and by Allah. The angels came to give Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam greetings. Salamu alaikum from Allah. Now, also says, and to tell you that he heard what you said to those people and their answer to you. I will close in these two mountains over them if you wish me to do so. This is important because no, the angel doesn't just come because he likes Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The angel is always sent by Allah. The angels don't get free roaming ability. The angels have to obey the commands of Allah. They don't, if Prophet Muhammad called to Angel Jibril, he can't come unless Allah gives him the permission to come to him, okay? Just like during the time of Aisha when she was being, the rumors, the falsehood was being talked about her, and he was praying for revelation because he was just miserable and he couldn't believe what he's hearing and he didn't know what to do and he was so upset. And at the same time, he couldn't accept that this had happened to, that this had really taken place with his wife, but he also couldn't accept that it hadn't because people knew, people saw it, and he couldn't just, this way or that way, but he was begging, he wanted that revelation, and it didn't come, because Allah did not send it.
Allah over here, he gave a choice to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes.
That if you like this to be destroyed, we will do it.
Exactly.
If it is your choice, if you want to keep it. So through Jibreel, Allah is communicating to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is giving him a choice.
Yes. And with that is the comfort from Allah. I love seeing this baby. I'm all about the babies right now. I don't know what's about it. Anyway, Ahmed's going to make me never come back. I'll do it. What's important here also is to understand that Allah is giving him the security that he knows what you did, he heard what you said, he also heard how you were responded to. You are not alone. You are not isolated with this pain, in other words. He's giving him that security as well as that sense of support, and it's in the other chapter where it talks about Taif, it really specifically says that was a time where Allah sent support and security to him because he had lost his uncle at this point, I believe, and he had also.
This is before they
got
graded too.
This was right. All of it was right around the same time of losing Khadija radiallahu anha and his uncle Abu Talib.
Yeah, at a low point.
And the city of Taif were all in the same season of sadness, is what it was called. The season of sadness, I think, or the time of sadness is what it's referred to as in Islamic history. But anyway, we will be covering chapter 37 next week. Next year. I'm out. Next week we'll cover chapter 37. Please read all of it, and I really, really enjoy the interaction part of this process. So please keep up with the reading.
Next chapter's good.
It is extremely good.
And it's short.
Extremely good.